My name is Bradford Douglas. I'm in the class of 2016, and David was my mentor.
I am Julie Arnold, and I am the wife of David A. Arnold, who was in the class of 1986.
It was a little surreal. We've been working on this for a couple months now. In David's last comedy special, he visited Beachwood and he walked along the Gallery of Success wall and basically expressed that it was important to him to be on that wall one day. And unfortunately, he couldn't be here himself, but we are glad that we were able to get that done for him since we knew it was very important. So it's surreal, it's emotional, but it's also exciting and gratifying that we were able to honor him in this way.
Well, David, since we were married for 20 years, and honestly, getting into the Gallery of Success was one of David's goals. So it was extraordinary to accomplish this and to see this through. And Bradford was extraordinary in helping us bring everything together for David. David was highly accomplished, and for one of his goals to be able to go back and be a part of his high school and the Gallery of Success, I think is so intriguing in itself. So coming here was like we've accomplished something for David. Also, driving here from his home, his childhood home, that for me was surreal. It was emotional because I was like, he drove this way every day. This is how he got to school. Yes, for 4 years. And we saw the flooring of the gym that he played basketball on. So to be a part of what he touched and what he saw and to be in this space is a celebration in itself. Although emotional, I'm very grateful that we're able to be a part of this and to bring this home.
I'm actually glad that we rewatched that interview because it brought back to memory my first time meeting David. We recorded an Alumni Connect podcast for Beachwood because I graduated in 2016. He graduated in 1986. So like 30 years apart, we just talked about our Beachwood experiences. And I talked about how, I was the stressed out, like AP honors kid juggling all the classes and the clubs and all that, and how his experience was the reverse. Like in his own words, he was like, I knew all the places to cut class. Like I would go here, I would do that, I would do X, Y, and Z. And he often made light of his academic challenges and his stand-up routine and his GPA and whatnot. And I'll save some of that content for Julie. But yeah, that was something that came to mind.
When I think of David and I think of Beachwood and I think of his stories that he shares, he does talk about the sports. He talks about playing football as well as playing basketball. His nickname was Woody. But beyond that, he did struggle academically, which I always say your strength is your weakness and your weakness is your strength. So in that regard, even though he struggled, there's so much that he gained from being here. One was the diversity for him, that he was surrounded by people that he may not have hung out with in his normal day life, and those are still friends of his today. So I think that's something to acknowledge, because he said that because he was able to interact with people that he didn't grow up with, and then when he went to Hollywood, he had that vernacular. He was able to smoothly walk and transition into different rooms because he felt comfortable to do so. One thing he's famous for is his GPA. He graduated with a 1.8. I'm saying this very fanatically because he told me this throughout dating and throughout our marriage. And it wasn't until my oldest was in 5th grade that he literally, I thought he was joking the whole time. And then he's like, no, I graduated with a 1.8. And I said, I'm married, so I graduated with a 1.8. Like, I couldn't believe this was a true story. And he said on one of his finals, they were studying The Old Man and the Sea. In the blue book, in his essay book, he wrote, I don't care. I don't care about the old man and the sea. I don't want to write about it. I want to talk about it. I don't want to read about it. And that was his essay. I don't know how he got through the doors. I think Beachwood was very kind and just said, get out. But he had a lot of support and love from his fellow classmates. and they actually voted him to be one of the speakers that year. So there was like the valedictorian and then David, who spoke at his high school graduation with a 1.8. And I say this because it stresses that your GPA is not everything. A lot of people, a lot of students, they're very stressed out over a GPA. And if you look around at your best friends or your friends, or even in this room, you have no idea what my GPA was or where I went to college. And I think people really should lean into being the whole person. And that's something that David is and was in my mind. He was a person full of life. He was whole and he was complete.
I guess I'll start with myself because being an alumnus of Beachwood, this community is very important to me, and I've stayed connected with it even post-graduation. And David and I met through Mr. Houchins, the director of community engagement, I think is his title. But he connected us, and David and I just hit it off in the alumni podcast interview. And just one way that he impacted Beachwood is that after that interview, he told me to keep in touch, and at the time his show That Girl Lele was still in development, and he basically told me, like, if it gets picked up, I'll get you a job on it. And he did, and he got my foot in the door in Hollywood, which is a notoriously difficult thing to do. People spend years trying to get their foot in the door in Hollywood, and he was so kind. And the fact that he gave me that opportunity after like an hour and a half of talking to me, it was like just very cool of him. So that's how he impacted my life as a member of the Beachwood community. And then on a broader scale, we spoke to a couple students during the convention when all of the inductees could, and a couple people with academic challenges spoke with us and talked about how hearing that David was so successful despite having the lowest GPA in his class was inspiring, and that just that hearing his story made a difference. So I feel like sharing his story is a key way that he continues to impact the Beachwood community.
I feel David impacts or is leaving a legacy with Beachwood is through his genuine, authentic self. He was someone who, what he said, he did what he said, and he was always committed to always showing up as his real self, being very authentic and being very genuine, and that's something you don't always find in Hollywood. And one thing, I have stories going through my mind, but one thing I can say is that when he spoke to the big celebrities or huge managers or the top of the game, he was never intimidated. He showed up as himself. Sometimes he would use language that I was like, David, I can't believe you said that. Put your best foot forward. But no, he always came as himself. And I think people respected that about him. And I think the Beachwood community will realize that if you are who you are, regardless of not having a great GPA or any other label, you can really succeed and persevere with resilience and with grit. He was the hardest person I know. He had an intense drive, and that can take you anywhere if you are who you are.
Two things come to mind. He gave a podcast interview to this guy named Ed Milet right before he passed away. And in that podcast interview, he talked about how it's very important that you find that thing that you want, that not having it is unacceptable to you. And for him, that was, his career as a stand-up, his career as a writer. Like for him, he wanted to be successful in the entertainment industry, doing all the things that he did. And not having that success was unacceptable, and it drove him through all the challenges and all the rejection that he faced. And he created a TV show and 2 Netflix specials, and he did the thing. And so that's the first thing, is finding the thing that you're passionate about, basically. And then the other one is a piece of advice that he gave me during the podcast interview that we did, where he basically told me to be myself, to be there's no better version than who you are, basically, and that the people who don't see the value or don't get it, like, they're not here for your journey. And if you can let all that fall away, then you'll go through the roof. So be yourself and find the thing that you're passionate about.
Definitely echoing everything you just said. When I think of David and what he would share to graduating seniors, David and I have a graduating senior this year. And I feel Anna Grace, although her father passed away during her junior year, she had 17 years of what he shared with her about what is coming. And he was very clear and very hard and very honest about working hard for what you love, desire, and want in life. Having that ambition and that drive and that grit to fight for what you believe in and what you want, and never stopping or never letting anyone tell you what you can or cannot do. It definitely leads into being your authentic self and having the courage to really find out who you are, who your authentic self really is. And it also opens up a space and a conversation about your inner grit, your inner fight, and really, I think of just David and himself and how he never stopped. He never stopped fighting for what he wanted, and he found a way, and he tried another way, and he had many, many doors. I just want to stress to the Beachwood community in high school that he had a gazillion doors of no's that came his way, but it took one yes, and he was not an overnight success. People are like, oh, he just came out of nowhere. No, he's been fighting since he left Beachwood High School, and he has an amazing legacy to show for it.